Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. In this podcast, we will interview individuals who have been successful within athletics and beyond. We hope that these interviews will encourage and inspire girls and women to be active for a lifetime, to reach their goals, and to break new barriers in sport and life. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. The mission of the Active Women's Health Initiative is to optimize health and promote physical activity and wellness for girls and women across the lifespan. We hope you enjoy our conversations and join us in understanding women's health today to ensure women's health tomorrow. Before we begin our conversation with Lisa today, I'd like to say thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. Whether you have listened to all of our episodes or whether this is your very first episode, we appreciate you and your support. If you're enjoying this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe and to share it with your friends and family. We thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in to the Champions of Active Women podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Lisa Goodin. Lisa earned her Bachelor of Science degree in elementary education from Eastern Kentucky University, a master's degree in elementary education from the University of Kentucky, and a rank 1 from Eastern Kentucky University in school leadership. While at EKU, she was a member of the women's basketball team and finished her career as the all-time leading scorer in EKU women's basketball history. After graduating, she became a teacher and high school basketball coach at George Rogers Clark High School in Winchester, Kentucky, and then the principal at Jessie Clark Middle School here in Lexington. She is now retired after serving 17 years as principal and is currently serving as a member of the Active Women's Health Initiative Advisory Board. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today via Zoom.
I'm glad to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
So you had quite a decorated career playing basketball at Eastern Kentucky University. If my research is correct, or the articles I could find are up to date, you are EKU's only 4-time All-OVC selection and the all-time leading scorer in EKU women's basketball history. So kudos to you. But I'd like to go back and to kind of where it all started. So could you talk to us about how you got into basketball?
Sure, I'd be happy to. As I was reflecting on how that I was going to answer that question before we began our talk, I was thinking back whenever I was very, very young, and I would say probably 4 or 5 years old. My father was always involved. He was an educator as well, and he was always involved in athletics, and he coached high school basketball and was an official in high school. And I always kind of hung out with him and was always sort of a gym rat, always wanted to be in the gym. And so it started, when I was very young, I took an interest in it and just always loved to have a ball in my hands. And my mom tells a story a lot about, the old round laundry baskets that people use, the plastic ones. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I used to set those up in the chairs in my parents' house and go around and shooting basketballs inside of those plastic laundry baskets. So it started when I was very, very young, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved watching it. I loved playing it. And but that's really, where it really started was when I was extremely young. Yes.
And it sounds like it was connected to some good quality time with your father and probably your mom too.
Absolutely. Believe it or not. Of course, I'm probably one of your older ones to be interviewed. My mother played back in the day when it was the old 3-on-3 half court.
Yeah.
And so she played when she was in high school with the old time 3-on-3. My parents, I'm originally from Indiana, and that's where my parents went to high school. And so my mother had a little bit of that in her as well. So So I guess I get it from both of them.
Getting it from both parents. What great role
Exactly.
models for activity and getting you involved in sports. Are there other people in your life who supported you throughout your youth career, or just people who you looked up to?
You know, Dee, I was thinking about this, and really as a young child, I was always active. I lived in a neighborhood where there were a couple of boys that were a year or so older than I was, and I always, hung out with the boys, and we always had pickup games of basketball or baseball, or be it tag or hide and go seek, or something that, when I look back, that we were extremely active, really from daylight until dark, until mom, called for us to come in at night. So, I think that, that my early childhood, growing up on the street with a couple of boys. And then also I had three of my cousins. We spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house when we were children. Both of my parents worked, and my grandma and grandpa would babysit with us. And so we were always active, there being playing baseball in the backyard, or picking up a basketball and doing a pickup basketball game. And so, when I look back, I was active at a very early age in my life, not maybe so much competitively, because back then, there weren't a lot of leagues and things like that for young girls to be involved in. So we, I guess, somewhat kind of created our own, to be involved in. So, but I had a wonderful childhood, and I reflect back on that now as I'm a little older, and realize how fortunate I was.
I've heard that story several times from people who are, probably similarly aged to you, and younger and
Mm-hmm.
older as well, that they just had these really great experiences with other children, whether they're cousins or siblings or neighbors in their
Mm-hmm.
youth, that kind of fueled this love for activity. So I love that story.
Absolutely.
Did you, so when did you have your first structured experiences with basketball then?
Well, I mean, this is probably going to be a shocker as well. I am from a small community in southern Indiana. It's a little town called Austin, Indiana. And the school is, my high school was probably 550, 600 students is how many that I had in my high school. And when I came along, my freshman year in high school was when they first started the girls' basketball team at Austin High School. And we played, I believe it was 8 games that first year.
Yeah.
And then from there, it progressed. So my first experience with structured team activity would have been, I guess, my freshman year of high school. And then, like I said, it just kind of progressed from there. I think my basketball season for all 4 years in high school, I think I totaled a total of 56 basketball games is what, for all 4 years. You think
Yeah.
about that now, and, they play 56 games in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's a
yeah.
different world, and it's kind of amazing because it's so, I mean, really in the grand scheme of thing, it wasn't that long ago. So
No, true.
it's amazing how quickly women's opportunities and girls' opportunities in particular have changed after Title IX, and so
Absolutely.
different.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
So, do you have a favorite moment? So when you think back about your sport experiences, whether they're youth or all the way through college, do you have a favorite or most impactful moment or two?
Hmm. I would say that probably just the entire experience that I had at EKU was an experience that, obviously that I will never forget. I made a lot of wonderful friends. I had a lot of wonderful experiences, and obviously got a wonderful education there, which was, first and foremost. So I don't know if there's any one single event, that occurred. I just think probably the entire experience that I had and was, blessed to be able to play for 4 years. And, like I said, gain a lot of wonderful lifelong friends, and was able to, to get a wonderful education, and then from there be able to, to get a nice job. So I would say that there's not any one particular event.
Yeah, just a big positive experience in your life.
Absolutely, it was.
So then after college, you mentioned that education was clearly a big part of being in college in addition to athletics, so student athlete role, and you became a teacher and a coach, and then went on to become a principal. So in my mind, coaching and teaching are very similar occupations, and I'm just wondering how your time as an athlete maybe impacted your decision, or maybe you always knew you wanted to be a teacher and principal.
It's very interesting that you asked that, because a lot of people have asked, when did you know that you wanted to become a teacher or go into education? And I can honestly tell you that when I started thinking about choosing a college, that I knew that is what I wanted to be. And I had a lot of wonderful teachers, along my educational path. And of course, my father was a wonderful role model, and I knew that is what I always wanted to do. And a lot of young people, when they get into college, a lot of times, they'll change their major 2 or 3 times before they've decided really what they want to do. But I can, honestly tell you that that I never wavered at all from, going in as a freshman until I graduated 4 years later, that I knew that is what I wanted to do, was to become a teacher.
You were on the straight and narrow path. Just
yes, I absolutely was. I did not waver from that really at all. And I had 29 wonderful years and a lot of wonderful experiences with the teaching and obviously the coaching as well.
So could you tell me a little about how you brought your athletic experiences and skills into the classroom or into your role as a principal?
I think probably one of the biggest things that I think as a collegiate athlete that you really have to learn, I think, is several things. But, working with different people, different personalities, and being a part of a team. And then also learning how to manage time effectively. And those are two of probably the biggest things. And I think that, as a college athlete, you have a lot of different members on your team and so forth that you have to, come together to form one. And, it's kind of the same thing whenever, you think about, being a principal of a school, is that you have to put together a team of people that have a common goal. And, so I think that, that those two things, and obviously being able, like I said, being able to, to manage your time effectively, because as a student athlete, you don't have a lot of spare time to be involved in, a lot of other outside type activities, because it does take a lot of time. You have to, you're on the road a lot, and you have to try to keep up with your, studies and activities and things so those are two of probably the biggest things that I took with me.
Yeah, and those are big lessons that are helpful whatever your intended career is, right? Time
Absolutely.
management and getting along with
Mm-hmm.
other people are two things that are pretty consistent.
Absolutely.
So, thinking about your physically active lifestyle, and you were active from a really young age all the way through college. And sometimes we find that athletes in particular who have those really structured experiences with activity have a hard time transitioning to their lifetime physical activity. So wondering if you could talk about that transition into how you stay active today.
Well, I think a lot of that, well, when I graduated from college, I was fortunate enough to be able to be involved in coaching at the high school level, and I was able to continue to be active, with the girls at practices and things like that. But then I also individually, took time to continue to do some runnings, do some cardio, do some weightlifting and things. But as I aged and I can continue to go up the ladder into like administration, that job is a lot different than being just a classroom teacher. There's a lot more hours involved in that and outside meetings and things like that. So when I got into that position, I found it a little more difficult to be able to be as active as what I, really was used to. And now, I have probably some injuries that or some aches and some pains that could be connected to all those years of activity. So I obviously don't do as much as I would love to do, but I enjoy being outside. I enjoy riding bikes. I enjoy walking. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do a lot of running now, but I enjoy being active. If it's I think even cleaning the house is an activity as well, so anything like that I can do. I can tell you that I don't sit still very well. So since I have retired from education, I have found something different to keep me active and keep me involved. And I've gotten involved with thoroughbred horses and have absolutely fallen in love with that. And so I'm enjoying that, kind of at this stage of my life too. So.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a really important point there, that it's so much about leading an active lifestyle is about moving in lots of different capacities. It's not always about those structured experiences that many of us have when we're younger, but kind of lose as we get older. So I think that's a great point.
Yes, and that that was probably one of the hardest things because I really believe that that moving and being active, that it makes you feel better, not just physically but also mentally. And if you can do I just know personally for myself that that if I can be active, even if it's for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, whatever it is a day, be it walking or walking back and forth to the barn or walking back and forth with the horses to the track or whatever that is, it just makes you feel a lot better. And if you can get a good sweat on, there's nothing like it.
I would agree. And that's, the inner athlete in you coming out, right?
Exactly.
So, are there young people in your life who you are encouraging now and supporting in their active pursuits?
I don't have any children of my own, but I have nieces and nephews. I have a couple of very young nephews that aren't really involved. They're involved in, the younger baseball leagues and things like that now. But I have a niece that just graduated high school and is on her way to Hanover College in Indiana. And she'll be participating on the women's basketball team there at Hanover.
Awesome.
And so, the one thing, Dee, that I think for all young people is I believe that they need to find something that they enjoy and be a part of and do it to the best of your ability. If it's just simply, maybe they don't want to be actually on the team, but maybe they want it to be a manager for the team or a statistician for the team, or so, but be the best manager you can be, or be the best statistician that you can be. Find something that you love and go with it.
I love that advice. It's simple, but it's something that can keep people engaged for a long time.
Absolutely. Yes.
So do you have any special advice or messages for young girls or women who are thinking about playing sports or being active?
Well, it kind of goes back to, my last statement, and that is that, don't let anyone tell you that you can't, because you can. And, I look back on my high school career, and I was the first Indiana All-Star to ever come out of my high school. So, that back then, that was unheard of, that, that was a possibility for someone coming out of a small school in Southern Indiana, competing with, the kids that were in the larger cities in Indy and in Gary and in Evansville and all those places. And, thank goodness at that point in time, what happened was that they had a tryout. They invited like 40 girls to come and to try out for the Indiana All-Star team. And I, was invited. And I knew that when I got there, that I absolutely was going to do everything under my power to show them that Lisa Goodin deserved to be on that team. And I, accomplished that. And so, I guess it doesn't matter where you come from or who you are. If you want something bad enough, you can accomplish that. Stay with it and do everything that you can humanly do to accomplish that goal. And don't let anyone ever tell you that you can't, because you can.
We started this interview by you talking about your parents and how supportive they were of your activity. But I'm wondering, given that message, if there were ever people who you thought doubted your capabilities.
Dee, I'm sure that probably somewhere along the way that there were people maybe that doubted my abilities. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I was sort of, I guess, if you will, kind of in my own zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a pretty determined individual. And, if someone tells me I can't, I'm going to do everything I can do to prove to them that I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that, that there were people that were doubters. But again, I had a plan, and I knew that I was going to try to do everything I could do to try to carry that plan forward. So.
Well, I love it. And I love those messages to young people out there, or to parents of young people who might be listening, about how they can support their child's endeavors, their active endeavors.
Yes.
So any other messages that you have for our audience about activity, sport, or any of the lessons you've learned through those experiences throughout your life?
I don't think so. I think that we've, covered quite a bit. And, again, I think there's so many wonderful opportunities now for young ladies to be involved and be a part of. And, I would just encourage young ladies to get out and to find something that they enjoy, and to be a part of something.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate your time today, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Dee.
Thank you for listening to the Champions of Active Women podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and was produced by the Faculty Media Depot at the University of Kentucky. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen and subscribe to all of our episodes wherever you find your podcasts. For up-to-date information about the Active Women's Health Initiative, you can find us on social media at UKAWHI. Thank you for supporting us as we work to promote health and physical activity among girls and women across the lifespan.